Destiny 2 beta. Let's talk. You've got myself Apps here from Dimp Digital, and I'm joined by Mr. Destiny himself, Sir Dave. How are you
Hello.
doing? Well,
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you?
yes, not too bad, thank you. Um, we've both played the Destiny beta this past weekend, and so's Logan, so's Mr. Piper, but no one really cares about what they think or what I think. They want to know, I guess, what a seasoned pro like yourself thinks. Hundreds of hours poured into the original and all its lovely expansions. So before we get into what you thought of what actually you played, can you give us a rundown of what was actually playable in the beta?
Yeah, it was a bit smaller than the Destiny 1 beta, and the story goes is because they had less new mechanics to test. It's an established world. They're reusing
Ooh,
some stuff from Destiny 1,
right,
so they only wanted to test some of the newer things
cop
that they're
out.
putting together. Yeah, so it came with one story mission, which we'd seen before in the reveals a couple of months ago.
Yep,
One three-player strike,
yep,
and two Crucible modes, which are the competitive player versus player modes.
yes,
Um, so yeah, not a huge amount of content. I mean, the mission take about 20 minutes. The strike is about 25 minutes, and then you can just play the Crucible modes until you're bored to death of them.
yes.
But yeah, it was. I enjoyed it for a couple of nights. That was probably enough for me, but it did run for a week, which is probably asking a lot for some people.
Yeah, they probably maybe just give everyone a chance to play it, because I know that
Yeah.
Logan didn't get a chance to play it until the Monday night, so he was glad it had run on. Uh,
Yeah, and it did run through a closed beta stage and then an open beta stage. So I guess you had people dipping in and out as the week went
yes,
on.
yeah. Also, I forgot to you mentioned the farm was available, wasn't it? The new social area.
Yeah, for 1 hour there was nothing in it except a football, but yeah, there was a football and I think two lights you could turn on and off.
I didn't
But
even know we could do the lights. That's two extra things that I've not managed to get hold of there. You mentioned that you played it on both the Xbox One and the PS4. Any noticeable difference in performance? I mean, I wouldn't have thought so at this stage,
no,
or
I
even
mean I
any
don't have the
stage.
PS4 Pro, so maybe I was missing out on something
Mm.
there. But certainly on the sort of standard PS4 and the Xbox Ones, it seemed pretty similar to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine there'd be much difference, especially at this stage or even at any
Yeah.
stage. To be honest, they tend to be quite clean. The PC, though, as we know, they've been advertising it's going to be unlocked glory days. So when that beta drops, I imagine you'll see some very nice gameplay footage out there, and I might have to dip into that. Should it open up to the public, which I assume it will do. Um, let's talk a little bit about your high level impressions of what you got to play. I mean, you mentioned there wasn't as much content as perhaps the original had, but what's your general thoughts coming away from it after a few days of play?
Well, after the first evening, I was not underwhelmed, but
Oh,
I thought it was very good. It didn't
yeah,
blow me away at all. It wasn't sort of an incredible game-changing evening of playing Destiny 2. Um, but the more the week went on, I think the more I got to grips with some of the changes, sort of understood why they'd been changed in the way they had,
right,
played around with a couple of the other subclasses, and played a bit more of the new Crucible mode, which was obviously one of the brand new things to try out.
yes,
And towards the end, yeah, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, as I say, I ran out of content after a couple of days, but
yeah,
what I did play, I really enjoyed. Yeah.
excellent. So the story mission, could you just set up what that entailed and roughly what's going on, so that anyone that's not aware knows what will be occurring should they jump into this? I'm assuming this is taken from the very beginning of the game. There certainly
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of setup. It kind of just throws you into it.
Yeah, it seems like that's going to be the first mission or one of the first couple of missions. It really kicks off. I mean, I guess after the original Destiny 1 release, we had two
Mm,
expansions for that. They were sort of side stories almost.
yeah,
Um, they didn't deal with the goings on of the Traveller, which is where we pick up with Destiny 2.
yeah,
So basically, you're dropped into a level. The Cabal have come to conquer Earth and take control of the Traveller, and it's your job, I guess, to defend the last remnants of humanity.
yeah. Those that had perhaps only played the original Destiny and never picked up the expansions, which was a lot of people because it went on for what 2 3 years in the end. The original
Yeah,
longevity
and
of
it
it.
definitely got better as it went on. So people who joined right at the start were probably turned off quite quickly, I could imagine.
Yeah, so I agree. It definitely did get better in terms of the storytelling. It felt, easy comparison to make, but a lot more Halo-y like. It had cutscenes and whatnot and stuff that was interesting. Does Destiny 2 continue that upward trend, or at least keep that same level? We're not dropping down to vanilla Destiny levels of presentation when it comes to the story mode, are we?
No, definitely. It's like a whole new level has been set with the
Yeah.
Destiny 2. Well, for the mission we've seen, whether they keep that up for the entire title, we can't say. But yeah, when we spoke 3 or 4 months ago, I think it was, about what we were looking forward to in Destiny 2, one of the things I'd picked up on was the story and how it was poorly told.
Yes.
And I hope they moved that on. And it seems that they have absolutely done that. There's cutscenes galore. It seems like there's interactions during the missions with other NPCs, which we'd never had before.
Yes.
And the storytelling seems to have gone up a gear to try and get you a bit more immersed into the world. So yeah, looks like good news on that front.
Yeah, I noticed that the guys that were, was it 3 or 4 people that would stand around that table in the tower of the original, who you'd never see do anything. They were essentially just, collect stuff, maybe take a quest out now and again. In this particular Destiny 2 mission, they were out in the field helping you and doing stuff, which was kind of cool to see finally, because before they were just Daniels again, just talking rubbish about Vanguard points or whatever. So I think it's definitely an upgrade there. It's the strike itself, it's called the inverted spear. Is it spear or spire? Spear. We'll go with spear. Spire. Blown it. What did you make of this? Because I actually quite liked. It didn't feel overly different. Obviously, a strike is a strike, but I did like it as a lot more. It felt open. I don't know if that's just because I've not experienced all of the strikes that were available in the original Destiny plus the add-ons. But it definitely felt. I quite liked it, is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much, it follows the same theme of the other strikes, in that you start at point A and you've got to work your way to point B and kill a boss. But it did feel really open. It's probably the first that I can think of, the first like completely outdoor strike. For the most part, it was outdoor. The boss fight at the end was in an enclosed space. But yeah, it was out in this huge open area. You could roam about sort of as far and wide as you chose, but still obviously heading towards the waypoint that you've been set. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. It's quite a good length. The boss fight perhaps dragged on a little bit, but that may be to do with some of the changes we'll get onto later about the weapons and the amount of damage people are outputting. But all in all, yeah, good strike. Enjoyed it.
Excellent. And finally, we had the Crucible. Looks and almost feels a lot different to my understanding of what the Crucible was before. Can you explain, I guess, some of the fundamental change and also the kind of new game mode they kind of ushered in this beta as well?
Yeah, so I guess the fundamental change, the first thing you'll notice if you did play any of the Crucibles, is that it's now 4v4 rather than 6v6.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to put more of a focus on mastering the combat, making it a bit less chaotic, so you don't have just people flying around all the time, just sort of getting lost in the melee of it all.
Yeah.
Trying to make it a bit more slow-paced, a bit more well thought through. And because of some of these weapon changes we'll perhaps talk about in a bit, there's slower time to kill, so you're not just getting instantly killed by snipers and shotguns. You've got 2 primary weapons, so everything's that little bit slower. People seem to live a bit longer. It makes for a slightly more, I don't know, probably a better paced Crucible experience than it was before.
I think initially when we were speaking offline, when they first mentioned it was going to be 4v4, we was kind of a bit bemused by it, because you've got your strike or your fire team, which is three players. Then if you want to do a raid, it's 6 players, and this is like an awkward middle ground of 4.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be any issues with that, or do you actually think that perhaps those that want the Crucible might be better off having a 4v4? Maybe that's the sweet spot of parties these days.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I agree, it is a weird number. The fact that, mainly from a raid point of view, if you've done a raid with your mates and you've finished it, you've now got to drop 2 people before you can go off to do another activity. It is a bit strange. I must admit I didn't notice it being glaringly different to 6v6 in terms of, I mean, if you make the map bigger, you get the same sort of density of players around you, so they've chosen to go with fewer people and smaller maps rather than keep the numbers and perhaps have slightly bigger maps. We'll have to see how it plays out. Certainly for the countdown game mode, which is the new one, I guess 4v4 works a bit better there because of how it forces you to split up your team and cover different points.
So
sort of in 2s or in 1s.
What do we have? Is it called Control? Is it called Control, the other one?
Yeah, Control, which
Um,
we had in
yeah.
Destiny 1, but obviously as a 6v6, and then
Yes.
Countdown, yeah, it's the new
So
one.
control is just your standard kind of domination, hold the point, hold 2 out of 3, and you'll get more points, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So we all know that one. But countdown, correct me if I'm wrong, is something like that's a new mode almost,
Yeah.
for Destiny at least. Um, how does this actually work? I mean, you got 4 players on each team, and you're either attacking or defending, aren't you? Essentially,
Yeah,
at
it's
specific
sort of a cross
points.
between control and elimination because you have to go off to certain objectives. There's 2 on the map, and then you have to either attack them by planting a bomb and sort of holding the area until the bomb explodes, or
Yeah,
defend them by stopping the other team planting or defusing it if they do plant.
yeah.
And the elimination aspect is once you're down, you can't revive yourself. You have to wait for a teammate to come and get you back up. So it
Yes.
makes it a much more slower paced thing. You're less gung ho about how you approach it because you don't want to charge in and die and then be no use to team. And it forces you, as I say, to split up into, well, when you're defending, certainly you want to cover both points until you know where the other team's going to attack. But
Yeah.
when you're attacking, maybe you want to go and send someone off to run distraction over at point A while you go and attack point B. So there's a bit more strategy involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So they made a few changes there and added a new mode, which is good. Do we even bother talking about the farm? Is my question. I mean, it was a bit barren, wasn't it? This is the social area that I assume is going to replace the tower and the
Yeah,
reef for a certain period of time, if not all of it. I think you were right. There was literally just a football field there. It's kind of I think they just they opened it just for people to have a look, and that was it. Obviously,
yeah, and
there's no
maybe to
quests
test
or
their
things.
matchmaking or something.
Sure.
Because I think they now have larger social, in terms of number of players. I think you can have more people there. So perhaps
Right.
they've got some new mechanisms in place. They wanted to test with that slightly inflated number of players.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was nothing really going on. There was a football you could kick into 2 goals.
It
You
kept the
could even kick it
score.
into the side of a goal and it would score.
Yeah, I did
Um,
see that.
but then you get some fireworks when you hit 3 goals. Yeah, it was entertaining enough, but probably not the highlight of the beta.
No, absolutely not. Um, there were some changes that have been made that newbies will not even notice at all, but many returning Destiny veterans might notice. Can you talk through what some of these kind of smaller but perhaps overarching changes are, and perhaps give your opinion on whether you are in agreement with the changes or the route they've gone down?
Yeah, so whether this is a change in the full game, we're unclear, but it does seem like you're now down to 2 subclasses per class.
Yeah.
So with the Taken King, Bungie added a third, so that each class had 3 different options in terms of playstyle. We're now back
Sure.
down to 2, and one of those 2, it seems, is new.
Right.
What was interesting, though, is how the perks for those classes work. Previously, you could select from a grid of talents, if you like, that can change the play style of your character a little bit. Either
Yeah.
increase their agility, maybe give them a special ability when they punch guys. Um, that might regenerate some of their health, or give you an overshield, something like that. And
Yeah.
you could pick and choose which of these perks you wanted from that grid. They've
Hmm.
now changed it where there's basically 2 routes. You pick either perk set A or perk set B, and
Right.
Bungie have balanced those perk sets against each other. So it does feel like there's a bit less customization there, less
Mm.
freedom to create an individual character.
Right.
Um, but hard to tell. We only had one of those perk sets per class available, so
Yes.
maybe
True.
once you've got both, you can see a
Swap.
noticeable difference. But that was a bit of a worry. And in the same vein, something we talked about the other night was the perks on weapons have been similarly simplified.
Yes.
Where previously you could get a gun called
Dave's big
uh,
gun.
Dave's hand cannon, and that would have a randomly rolled set of perks on it, and
Yeah.
you could keep hunting for that gun until you had the ideal combination for your
Yeah.
playstyle. Um, Now all of those guns with that name will have the exact same set of perks. So the gun
Yeah.
I have will be the same as the gun you have,
Yeah.
which to some extent kind of simplifies the grinding aspect of it. You don't get a gun and go, oh, that's got trash rolls, I'm just going to throw that in the bin.
Yeah.
But it does mean you've significantly reduced the variety of weapons available in that now, you know, everyone who's got that gun is going to be shooting from the same range, doing the same damage.
Yes.
They're not going to have sort of the variety of perks that I think made the loot grind in Destiny quite enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, now there's an end of the line when it comes to weapons. There's only X amount of combinations.
Yeah,
Whereas I assumed before it was basically random. So in theory, it was almost infinite. I imagine that eventually you'd roll very similar stuff, but
Yeah,
very difficult. In this one, like I said, once you've got Dave's hand cannon, you've got Dave's hand cannon. It is what it is. And
yeah.
there's
And if that's the gun you like using, you don't need to go hunting for anything else because you've
yeah,
got it. You've achieved the goal. You have the weapon. There's no point continuing to farm for a slightly better version of it.
yeah. Personal opinion, you a fan of that, or you a little bit apprehensive to adopt it and go yes more?
It concerns me in terms of the longevity of the game. Uh,
Yeah,
there was a particular gun in year one Destiny called the Fatebringer, which was a really good hand cannon. It had this sort of ideal set of perks on it, but it got left behind in year one. When year 2 and 3 came along, there was a similar weapon with a different name that had the chance to roll that same set of perks. And I did spend a lot of time playing Destiny 1 trying to get the right
yeah,
set of perks on that gun. And
yeah.
that's time I won't now be spending in Destiny 2 because that scenario won't arise. So it does
No.
worry me that maybe I'll not be able to make Destiny 2 last the 3 years or whatever it was that I made Destiny 1 last. It could be that, yeah, after a year, we've just exhausted the grinding aspect of this game.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, it's certainly for those that dip into it, it's not going to be a concern. But for many people, Destiny almost is a way of life when it comes to gaming. It is all or nothing, and you delve into these kind of meta parts of it,
yeah,
to extend the life of it or to make it interesting or to get your character as personalised as you want.
yeah,
And that seems to be slowly stripping away. On the surface, you're not going to notice, but for many people that play the game, for its longevity, that you're right, it could suffer.
yeah.
Um,
On the flip side, all that time I spent farming for that gun
true.
was time I could have been playing the
Yeah,
actual game
yeah,
with the weapon I got the first time round. So
yeah,
there's pros and cons to it. We'll have to see what variety of guns they have in there. Maybe there's enough variety just in the base models of these guns that you don't need all these randomly rolled perks.
Maybe they looked at people's hours and thought, we can't be having people doing that of their lives again. Let's do them a favour and
Yeah,
cut that out for them. Weapon loadouts, 2 primaries now.
yeah.
Good, bad, indifferent.
Well, this was one of the things that I wasn't sure about on that first evening when I played it. I couldn't get to grips with why I'd want 2 hand
Second.
cannons or 2 pulse rifles. I tend to use hand cannons quite a lot, so for that first evening, I did run around with 2 hand cannons and then just used the one that was the better of the 2.
Yeah.
I worked out as the week progressed that clearly the point is to give you some variety in terms of having a long range weapon and a short range weapon,
Yeah.
a high damage weapon versus something that can sort of chip away at armor,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And one of those primaries does have an elemental damage type on it, so they're not just like for like. It's not literally like having the 2 of the same weapon. You have one that is the kinetic damage for killing your random enemies, and then one
Yeah.
that's better for shielded enemies. So there was some subtlety there that I didn't really get to grips with the first day, and as I say, the more I played it, the better it became. And in the Crucible, that really did work because you could have
Right.
your pulse rifle, which seemed to be the go-to gun for the Crucible,
Yeah.
for your long-range encounters, and then when they got up close, you can switch to a hand cannon to finish them off.
Yeah.
And because you had these 2 primary weapons, we didn't see as much shotgun, sniper rifle, sidearm usage, although
No.
sidearms were actually in the game.
Yeah.
No one seemed to be using them, which meant these weapons that can kill you in one hit weren't as dominant because
No.
the ammo for them was much more scarce. I think it probably was a success for the Crucible. It made it a more enjoyable experience once you got to grips with the different loadouts you had to put together.
Excellent. Sounds like a good change then, and giving people a little more options about how they approach each individual situation, I guess, so you can kind of
Yeah.
adapt on the fly.
One one downside of it was that the
No.
power ammo class, which is where the rocket launchers and now the sniper rifles and shotguns were,
Yeah.
seemed to be very hard to find ammo for.
Yeah.
So certainly in the
Don't
strike
waste your
that we
bullets.
did, in the strike we did, you just tend to hold on to your heavy ammo because you weren't sure whether you're going to see any more of it, and you're just sort of saving it for the boss.
Yeah.
I think Bungie have acknowledged that the drop rate of that ammo needs to change, and so maybe in the release we'll see it a bit more prevalent. But
Yeah.
if they can balance that, it can be quite an enjoyable system, I think.
Well, this is why we have betas, isn't it?
Yep.
For things like this. Any other changes that I've missed off of our kind of predetermined list, or that you wanted to mention before we kind of move on to the to the latter part of this chat?
Well, we mentioned those. I mentioned they had these 3 new subclasses.
Yes.
Those were quite enjoyable. The Hunter seems to have got the raw end of the deal in that they've got a class that's very much like it's the lightsaber one. So you like the look of this class, didn't you?
Shit to use though. That
Yeah.
dodge. What is that dodge? Was that in Destiny 1 at all?
So in Destiny 1, the
Or Destiny 80?
third
Wasn't
Hunter
it?
subclass,
Yeah.
the new one that was added with the Taken King, could do that dodge on something like a 3-second cooldown.
Yeah.
And so it was incredibly useful, but also incredibly annoying in the Crucible when these wriggly little hunters would just roll around in front of you. You wouldn't be able to kill them. I think because of the complaints about the Crucible side of things, they've now given that dodge to all hunters, but put it on, I think, the 17-second cooldown, which just feels too rare. You sort of use it one. Well, it's like the heavy ammo again. You hold on to it because you don't know when you're going to need it, and then you end up never using it. It allows you to reload while you're doing it, which I guess is to try and promote the hunter as a damage dealing class who doesn't need to take a break to reload.
Yeah.
But in comparison to the wall that the Titan gets and the healing rift that the Warlock gets, it did seem the least useful of the 3 new abilities.
Yeah.
And then that Arc Strider with a staff basically seemed a lot like a Blade Dancer who can't go invisible. Other than that, it felt very similar. So in terms of something new and exciting for hunters to look forward to, it was a bit of a letdown. Again, when you compare it to Titans who had the Captain America shield that they could throw around and charge into battle with, or Warlocks who could fly around and shoot fire down at their enemies, they certainly had something a bit more interesting about them than the hunters who had more of the same, really, but this time a stick instead of a knife.
Yeah, I think I've made my decision that the Hunter will get binned. I mean, I don't typically build 3 characters. It'll be 1 main character and 2 others just to mess around in. And I think I done Titan last time, and I think I'll go Warlock this time. That's going to be my go-to, I believe. You mentioned the cooldowns on the roll for the Hunters, but the cooldowns themselves didn't feel longer just for that. It felt like even the grenades, for example, felt maybe a tad too long, and supercharging certainly felt slower, at least to me. Are you in agreement with that assessment, and does that bother you, or do you think that's a better way to balance those skills?
I am in absolute agreement. I think they've gone a bit too far with it. I can see, based on the complaints I had been seeing towards the back end of Destiny 1, I can see why they've done it. There were lots of complaints about, in the Crucible, people with sticky grenades. If you had 2 of them, you could get a new one every 30 seconds or so, and so you're just constantly leading with a sticky grenade instead of focusing on your gunplay or whatever.
Which is what I used to do. Don't get me wrong, mate. That was all I'd do. I love a grenade throw.
Well, whatever works, so I can see why they've thought, well, we need to do something about this. What doesn't really stack up is they've made grenades weaker, but also now slower to recharge. So they've sort of double nerfed it, if you like.
Maybe gone too
They just
far.
needed to do one or the other of those things rather than both. The fact they've made them slower to recharge just seems to... I mean, you can't rely on them being available, so you don't really consider them as part of your gameplay anymore.
No.
If you've got it, you throw it, because might as well. But then you've got, I think it's a 1-minute 20 wait before you get another one, which just feels far too long. And it means in the Crucible, so when we play Control, for example, everyone charges towards the centre point at the beginning of the match. They all throw their grenades in, and then that's it for 1-minute 20. You just there's no grenades on the map at all until everyone gets another one, and then they all throw them back in.
No.
So it did feel a bit weird. Hopefully they can do something about that. Supers were very much the same. I was a bit of a sado last night and did a bit of testing. So a super in Destiny 1, when you were a level 1 character, would take 5 minutes to charge, 5 minutes 30 for some of them. By the time you'd got some pretty good gear, you could get that down to about 3 minutes 40.
Yep.
So between 3 and 5 minutes. In Destiny 2, a super took 7 minutes 30 seconds to charge. And given the Crucible matches time out at 8 minutes, you can see why that might be a bit frustrating. Now, you can speed up that charge if you get kills. Or if you pick up orbs from other people who've used their supers. But it was not uncommon for me to finish a Crucible match without using my super, because I either didn't get enough kills to charge it, or the game ended too soon because they reached the score requirement.
Yeah.
Again, hopefully that's a parameter they can change just to tweak that a bit.
Yeah.
And
I
one,
would imagine so.
yeah, one caveat on that as well is we were playing with gear that did nothing to try and improve
No.
those cooldowns.
It was all
Maybe
stock
there's a
gear.
master plan, yeah, and in Destiny 2 you'll collect all this stuff that means you can focus on having more supers
Yeah.
versus more grenades, and it'll all feel good in the end. But certainly it's the thing that the Destiny Reddit has been all over. It's the time it takes for these things to recharge. Especially
Yeah.
because if it was done for a Crucible balancing perspective,
Yeah.
it's really hurt the strike game.
Well, that's why I can't understand is that couldn't they adjust different parameters for the Crucible? Not insane amounts, but adjust it so it's slightly longer to appease that audience. But then when it comes to your strikes and your story missions and whatnot and your shared areas, you want to use your super, don't you? That's the great moment in those is when you blast through a load of enemies. So I can't see why they couldn't just tweak it slightly. Maybe they can't be asked. It's a lot of work to balance it if something goes out of balance, I guess.
Yeah, I think
But
that's it. It's something they have been asked before, and they've always been reluctant to do, is to separate the PvP and the PvE side of it. I think they
yeah,
just want people to feel like they understand their characters no matter what the environment. So
sure,
you
there is that, I guess.
instinctively know when you've got a grenade ready because you've just been playing for that long that
Yeah,
you've
it's
got a
true.
feel for it, and they don't want to separate those two things.
Yeah.
But that is the big complaint, that are all these changes we're seeing because the PvP side of it was so unbalanced, now having a major impact on the PvE side of things.
Yeah, these are questions that hopefully will get answered come worldwide release. Any other concerns with what you played that we haven't perhaps touched upon?
Um, I
If you haven't
think
got
we've
any.
largely covered it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, mainly the cooldown rate of these abilities. It
yeah,
slightly concerns me that we're going back to two subclasses, if that is indeed the case, because having bought the game with two, been given a third, and then to be back down to two just feels a bit like they're taking away your Christmas presents.
Have you ever
Um,
played The Sims?
um, yes, I think years
So,
ago, yeah.
if you go from The Sims 2, do better. If you go from The Sims 3, so you play that game, you get all the expansions after 2 3 years. You then go to The Sims 4, which I did. It's all gone again. I
Yeah,
took it all away. I mean, it feels like that again, but not. The Sims is an awful example because they actually strip out a lot of stuff. But just as you said that, it kind of reminded me of that experience when I got The Sims 4, and I was like, I can't do that anymore because
yeah.
they haven't made the expansion, and I haven't bought the expansion yet that I had in the old one. But I can definitely see why that would be a slight aggravation
And maybe that's exactly what it is. They want to hold back that third one as a selling
for
point for one of these expansions that they're going to no doubt release.
yeah. Yeah, we're definitely getting those, that's for sure. Um, just before we do our kind of final piece, positives. Anything you want to call out on the positive front? Because you've mainly picked holes in it, but by
Yeah,
all
it's
accounts,
easy to
still
be
enjoyed
critical,
it.
isn't it?
Oh yeah,
I did
absolutely.
really enjoy it. The storytelling was great. Visually, it looked really good. As I explained to you, I'm only playing on a fairly crap TV, but I'm sure those on better TVs with better consoles will notice a huge improvement in the quality of the graphics, if not the frame
Yeah,
rate. Um, and as I say, I enjoyed the weapon changes in the Crucible. If they
yeah,
can just tweak these balancing things, um, and perhaps have a look at the longevity of the game based on these perk changes, the hype's definitely gone up for me.
all right.
I'm certainly looking forward to release day. Maybe not as excited as I thought I'd be after the beta, but that's probably down to the amount of content in the beta. It didn't really have enough to really get under my
Yeah,
skin.
no, absolutely. Well, it's good that it's hype up overall because
Hmm.
sometimes with these betas you can get dragged into the doldrums and
Yeah,
overly critical and just hang on to those. But that's definitely a good point on there. As we publish this, there will be your written version, I guess, of this in perhaps a little bit more detail for those that want to read it.
hmm,
Um, so they'll be able to find that, the guys at home. If you head over to, is it medium.com/dimpdigital now? I can't remember
yes,
and you'll find Sir Dave's written report of the Destiny 2 beta. So make sure you go and check that out. I think that's a wrap here, Sir Dave. Thanks very much for joining me on this edition of Let's Talk.
no worries.
Those of you at home, nothing else for us to say here apart from thanks for your time and ta-da.